When are they coming for me? The sound of a car racing down the street swept into the basement. Loud enough for us to feel the urgency in the driver's effort. Danielle. Dad snapped, grabbing my wrist. We have to run. I sprinted up the basement stairs without waiting for an explanation from my father. So many different people wanted to hurt me. It was safer to assume every stranger was an enemy. The van screeched to a halt. Just outside our front door. The sound was loud enough to communicate exactly what was unfolding, even though I couldn't see. A heavy man leapt onto the sidewalk and raced toward the house. And the only way out of the basement was moving upward. And closer to the front door. Have you ever been forced to run from danger by racing towards it? Our survival instinct stretches and cracks in those moments, pushed and pulled by contradictory messages between our higher and lower brains. But I knew that moving too slowly would be my final mistake. So I sprinted to the top of the stairs and pushed open the door. A thin, pale man was waiting for me. Danielle, he whispered, as the man outside slammed against the front door. Please, I gasped. Please move, there's a man who wants to hurt me. There are many men who want to hurt you, he answered in a steady voice. The front door slammed again. As the thin man reached for me, Dad shoved me hard against the wall and tackled the pale man as the front door bursted open. The two of them rolled on the floor, each bearing a vicious-looking set of fangs. They stopped. With Dad on the bottom, his enemy's hands wrapped around his neck. What did you think those teeth would do, Essen? The pale man smiled. As I stepped behind him. You can't hurt me with a bite, but I can make you suffer by squeezing a throat that will never die. He hissed as he grabbed Dad's neck even tighter. His face turning bright red. Dad made silent eye contact with me, as the pale man continued talking. You can't see more than one step ahead, Essen, and that's why your daughter won't. Dad bursted forward and knocked the pale man onto the stake that I had pointed against his back. The weapon ripped through his chest, with a splorch that seemed to surprise him more than anything else. Blood gushing down his chest, the pale man looked back at me in confusion, before rolling off of my father. Dad gasped for breath, as the other man walked into the kitchen. He seemed 9 feet tall, bearded and thick. More animal than human. My survival instinct kicked into high gear. I knew that he was here to take me to the man that Dad had warned me about, and that I would have been safer if we just let the vamp kill me. Understanding hit me in an instant. Both a hunter and a vamp had appeared, minutes apart from each other, and alone. Such an arrangement meant that they wouldn't fight one another. And they wouldn't have the numbers to take me. But it would be just enough to slow us down so that this towering behemoth could have his way in the end. They had been sacrificed by a man who knew how to use his pawns. Time ticked sideways. I looked from the stranger to my father, and understood what was about to happen. I knew that he would overpower the two of us, even with our fangs, and that this fight was over before it began. You know what's in room 1913, Essen, the large man said. Dad closed his eyes and took a long breath, before looking at me. For a few moments, every sound ceased except for my father's voice. He stared up from the floor, eyes bloodshot, and face still red. Too exhausted to cry. Danielle, if you've ever loved me, don't stop running. He sprang to his feet, and lunged at the enormous man. Dad's face met a plate-sized fist that knocked him to his knees. Dad couldn't win this fight, but if he fought to the end, it would be enough to give me a 30-second head start. Would you run away? I thought that I would need a long time to consider, but it turns out that we really know the answers to even the most painful questions. It just takes time to admit them. I turned and sprinted toward the back door, bursting through it, as Dad screamed. I ran until my lungs burned, and my veins pumped battery acid. And I didn't stop. For a very long time. I knew that the world could hurt me. Because I could hurt it right back. I never saw my father again. I knew it, even then, but wouldn't believe it for a long time. The large man would reappear several times in my life. But everyone's a freak from someone else's perspective, and feeling normal is just a lack of self-awareness. Tears flowed freely as I raced into the night. This was Dad's fault. All parents fail their children in ways that will follow them forever. I suppose that's the only reason we beg forgiveness From our own children. My ugliness kept me alive by hurting anyone who felt normal through hating me, and each encounter pulled back more of the veil. I figured it didn't make much sense to hate myself, as so many other people were handling that particular task. So I felt the difference flow through me as I lifted my legs higher and higher, moving away from everyone who believed that I was wrong from birth. And reached. Soon, my feet weren't even touching the ground, and I stopped pumping them altogether as I floated higher and higher into the night.